Yeah, isn't it? Okay. Okay, so in the second part, we have two studies that I'm going to tell you about. This is the first one. It was conducted in Sweden, and it was conducted by me and Åsa Kajander. We did the data gathering, and Jan Gullison, he was our supervisor in our PhD studies. And this study was conducted in the autumn 2010. So he was more taking part in the writing, analyzing the data and writing the results. So the motivation for the study was that we had done some surveys similar to the one that I showed you before. They were conducted in Iceland, and this one that we based this, or was sort of a motivation for this study, was that it was a survey on testing. How are testing practices in Icelandic software industry? We knew that Scrum was very popular in Iceland, and not much research had been done on the integration of user-centered design in Scrum. So we wanted to understand better than doing a survey, because like you found when we were discussing the results of the survey, you don't really know why they said this and that and so on. So survey gives you like a certain feeling about something, and we've been, bombarded with surveys for the last weeks in Iceland, because we've got all these surveys about how will the results of the elections be. And people, we were getting results with some days between, and then we had the election this weekend, and the results were quite different from the surveys. So it is often quite hard to know if the survey gives you like the right understanding. So this was one of the motivations, that we wanted to understand how user-centered design is integrated through interviews. Because then you can ask, when you say user, what do you mean? And when you say client, what do you mean? You see? And how do you do this? And why do you do this? And so you can dig a lot deeper when you do interviews. So we did 21 interview in Sweden. And this was in the Swedish software industry. So we went to all these places, and this is me interviewing many people there. The gray dots are people, these are the heads of the people that I didn't know how to blur them. So this is my way of blurring them. And you can see that we were in various places. This was maybe the loudest place, because this was like in a shopping mall, and we were just in a cafe, and there was it wasn't really nice doing an interview there, but it was a very interesting guy that I was interviewing. So the interviewees had various roles, and we made notes on paper and we recorded. So the black thing here on the table here, this is a voice recorder. And most often we were two doing the interview. So there was me asking the questions, and then a note taker. Okay, and these are the interview questions, some of them. We had 2 or 3 pages of those. So we had like a short introduction first, and then questions about the background, and then some themes like, what are your experiences from using Scrum, and then experiences for using user-centered design, and a few other themes. And because I'm introducing studies for you, I wanted to just show you how studies are done. So we took all the voice files and we wrote every word they said. And we used this tool, Transcriber, and typically it takes like 1 hour to transcribe or write all the words people say uh, in 10 minutes time. It takes 1 hour to write those down, so it's a lot of work. It's Yeah, and sometimes I'm actually slower, so it takes me between 6 and 10 hours to write 1 hour interview. But I was a student at this time, so I was supposed to, work. But after I think 6 or 7 interviews, we actually decided to ask a lady that is professional in transcribing to do it for us, because it took so long time. And then we had we analyzed the data according to theme. So we had like a tree of themes that emerged from the data, and we found clusters, and we could also use a tool in like yeah, coloring or coding the interviews. So here is one interview, and we could say, okay, the first thing is about the present work. And then the next thing is about Scrum, you see? And then you go through all the interview and say, okay, this piece is about user involvement. This piece is about other stakeholders. This piece is about something. And when you have that for all the interviews, you can get a file which takes all the parts where they are describing user involvement in one file, or all the things about Scrum in one file. You see? So this is how we did, and we scribed the results in several papers. So yeah, as I said, we wanted to get better understanding on how it is to work with user-centered design activities in Scrum projects. So we analyzed particularly the data on usability evaluation, meaning user testing and informal evaluation, and wrote a special paper about that. But we also analyzed other ways of integrating users with scenarios and so on. And these are the results on the on the evaluation. So we grouped the results according to the background of the informants. And the results show, okay, so we have experts, people typically having a PhD in human-computer interaction. We have interaction designers, which typically work in the teams. We interviewed 4 business analysts, and these were the people that worked mainly before the Scrum began. They were doing the vision, they were doing lo-fi prototyping, they were doing workshops with users. They were typically using many of the methods that you've been learning here in this course. We had 2 developers and 3 Scrum Masters. And then we asked them, okay, are you measuring? Meaning, do you have like measurable goals, or are you collecting measurable data? And this was a disappointment because only 4 out of 21 were doing it that formally. And I thought everything was so great in Sweden. But it wasn't, because I wanted them. Oh, it doesn't really fit. Okay. I wanted them to do the formal evaluation because we know that they rate it very highly. They think this method is a good, this is a good way of getting feedback from users. But because agile development is so fast, they have these 2 weeks and so on, they didn't do it. But they were doing a lot of informal evaluation. So 18 out of 21 were doing some, asking users about their opinions. And this could be showing them paper prototypes. This could be collecting comments on a blog, sending a survey. This could be a lot of things. They could also go to the field. So more than half of them did, doing more like a contextual interviews, going and observing, checking what users are doing. User surrogate, that means it's not a user, but it's a person acting as a user. And then this is getting feedback from colleagues or experts. So half of them did. So we found out people are doing mostly informal evaluation, and they do it in various ways. They could ask people to come over during the lunch break to look at paper prototypes, getting feedback in that way. But these 4 here that were doing formal user testing, like you were doing in project 4, they were sometimes also asking other people to do it, like a company. There's one company here in Iceland called Xiao that is this is their main product that they do user testing for other companies. And at least one of them, even though he had a PhD in human-computer interaction, he didn't do the user testing himself. He asked a consultant company to do it. But he did a lot of informal user testing. Okay, and then we asked them also, okay, so when you're gathering feedback from users, what do you do the results? What do you use the results to do? Do you use the results for changing your design? And almost all of them did. They could also use it for user requirements, changing the user stories or changing how the users would like the interface to be. And half of them were like using it for, adjusting the information on the context of use. This was one of the results that really puzzled us. So this was actually the question that we were very systematic in asking all the people about. This was probably the only question that we were really strict on. We asked all of them about this. So who is responsible for the product to be usable? And we got really mixed results. Okay, so if you are a Scrum manager, there were 3 of them, Scrum managers. They all said it's the Scrum manager that is responsible. Okay, the team members, they had mixed answers. So 2 of them said it's the Scrum managers. 3 of them said, well, it's us. It's the team that is responsible that the product will be usable. One said, oh, it's the usability specialist because he has the education. And then 3 of the team members said, well, there's actually nobody. So they had really mixed answers, mixed view on this. The usability specialists, most of them thought that they were responsible, but one said, okay, it's the whole team. And then the business specialists, we had 4 of them, and they also had mixed answers. So they thought, one thought that it was the managers, 2 the team, and then 1 the usability specialist. So this told us that it's not really clear who should be responsible for this. You know, that the user perspective is taken into the software development. And I think this is actually very important. When you come into the industry, you should really try to sort it out. Who is responsible that the users will be involved? What is, you know, you could start discussion on this on one of the meetings. How is your views? Is it us, the team, or is it somebody else? Or how do we look at it? And I think the most important thing is that everybody agree. So you know who has this flag of taking care of the users. Because if you know everybody are pointing at somebody else, nothing will happen. Yeah, I have 2 like experience stories here. There are 2, these are 2 people that were very successful in their work, and their views on integrating user-centered design was that the first one was a usability specialist, and he thought that the strategic vision was really important, you know, making a vision in the beginning, like I was asking you to do, draw the vision, try to agree on the vision and work on it, get feedback on it, make another one, consolidated vision. This was really important for the success of the product. And the other thing was that you should set UX goals. And I also asked you to do that in, you know, stating measurable goals. So these were the 2 things that he emphasized. And he said, this is necessary to define before the actual project begins. Because when it begins, you know, everybody are in a hurry. And they're just trying to, you know, ship the results of the sprint every 2 weeks. And this guy, he thought that the big picture of user experience is missing in Scrum. So you know, and this is also in maybe what we were discussing about the responsibility. So there's actually nobody there, you know, there should be like agreement of when is user experience integrated. He emphasized that the user experience evaluation was done in cooperation with the team. And most of this user-centered design activities are done in before the sprint starts. And also user testing. So actually, in his mind, and he was a well-educated guy in this area, in his mind, most of the methods that you have been using in this course should be used before the actual sprint starts. But you should also evaluate every now and then. We also put forward here experiences from a UX designer. She was in the team, and she was like she had made her way to be a friend with the developers. So she was really collaborating with the developers. She was she was a part of the whole project. and she had been successful in showing how user experience, how important it is to include user experience. Uh, Her concerns were that it's hard to find time for user-centered evaluation or user experience evaluation, you could call it also. And she mentioned that there was no definition of the responsibility. What what was a surprise for us actually was that it was actually not easy for the specialist to be in to work in Scrum. So if you have a specialty degree in like user experience, they were sometimes not like a part of the team. They were more like specialists that were outside the teams, and they didn't really fit into the like the culture. So we have comments like one said, "I'm like an add-on." Um, yeah, and the same guy, he's also said, I'm just tipping on my toes around the team. So it wasn't actually easy to be a specialist, having like a really yeah some knowledge that you're focusing on, um, and not being a part of the team. Yeah, one of the business analysts commented, my main tasks are conducted before the actual Scrum begins. So this is maybe the main takeaway message, that uh, both this UX specialist and the business analyst here, they say that many of the things that you've been learning here in the course actually is used before the uh, production begins. The last study. Do you use Spotify? Mm-hmm. Every day. Yep. So this hon Sinna or Sigurhanna, she was studying at the MPM program here at Reykjavik University, which is a master program in project management. And she did her final project studying the product owners at Spotify. And she was particularly interested in what are the responsibilities and challenges for product owners at Spotify. And I was her supervisor, and Åsa Kajenter was a co-supervisor in this project. And we wrote a paper on the results together. So she check the background, like what have people been writing about what the responsibilities of product owners are. And it is a multi-phased role, but it includes, involving customers, focusing on value, and creating a vision. You've been working on creating a vision. We have been focusing on user experience. That could be one of the values. And we have been focusing on involving users. And we've discussed this, tension between customer and users, but they always use customers in the Agile literature. Okay, so Spotify, it was founded in 2006, and there are around 1,000 employees. Uh, they've used Agile development methods since 2006, but in 2014, they used mostly Kanban. And she went there to Stockholm and visited them in the headquarters in 2014. And What I liked about this, that's why I took this, is that they really emphasized that they wanted to be easy. You know, they wanted to be usable. And there are only like three things that you are supposed to do: search, browse, and discover. And this was recently that Spotify hits 39 million subscribers. So it's really a huge customer cohort that they have. So she got the inspiration for this project by going to an conference here in Reykjavik. So it was the Agile conference, and there she met this presenter from Spotify and asked if she could get the opportunity to go there and gather data, and wrote her master thesis, and then we wrote a paper on her project. So what she was asking was, what are the main responsibilities, and particularly how do product owners identify customers? How do they measure the value of their team's work? So do they have measurable goals, actually? How do they form a vision for the teams? And then the second one is, what are the challenges of product owners, and how do they cope with them? So what she did was that she went there, she stayed for 3 days, and she was sort of shadowing a guy. Do you know what shadowing is? Yeah. Okay. So that was like following them all the time. Yeah. And then she also interviewed people. So she interviewed 3 product owners, 1 product manager, and 1 scrum master. So she was shadowing a product owner, 1 person for a day, and then interviewing and observing. So she was present at many meetings, and yeah, got to be there and ask people, and people were very open and generous with her. So she had a lot of informal meetings and observations. Um, okay, so identifying customers. How do the product owners identify customers? Well, they want the team to know the customers. So one of them said, well, I am supposed to be representative for the customer's interests, and we are here to deliver something. You see, here they say customers and users just, in the same sentence. So this is the same for them. And in their case, it's actually the same because people are paying but also using. So we are here to deliver something that users want to use and will love. Our success should ultimately be customers who love the product. Uh-huh. Yeah, and the other one, for me, the heart of agility is getting software to users and learning from them, listening to them and getting feedback fast, and that's all there is to it. So these are really positive for user-centered design or for this course. How do they measure the value? Well, most of them found it hard to measure the value. They found it hard to have measurable goals. Um, and when they talked about value, they started to think about money. And so they said, well, we don't see much of money here. Yeah, so they are not that concerned about it. But some product owners did use the number of users. So if the number of users were getting higher and higher, they thought it was a measure of success. And then the third thing was on the vision. and they thought, actually the product owners thought that making the vision, or um, being responsible for the vision was actually um, a responsibility that they struggled with. So they wanted the team to have a vision, but they didn't really know how to create it and so on. And they also stated that the visions were made informally. So it could take place on a broad hall or something. And this was hard, particularly hard because the goals changed quickly. So I think actually the one of the takeaway that you can get from this course is actually, you know, drawing the vision, because then you get a lot of communication about it. It is blurry until it's on a paper. And it's not, it's not easy to form it. So it should really be worked on. You should embrace that activity. The challengers, they thought it was like a multi-faced role. So it was a combination of like a diplomat or a juggler. They said, there are a lot of voices and yeah, like once that said, uh, everybody think their thing is so important, but if you have like a loads of those different opinions, it's hard to know which to prioritize. So they wanted to spend time with the team every day for collaboration and understanding, and they saw themselves as an indirect leader of the team. Yeah. But the product owner, this is why I'm showing this to you, because sometimes in the agile literature they say that the product owner is the one that should know the user needs. So we wanted to hear, how do they do that, and how do they really integrate users in the work. So the role is diverse, it's multi-faced, and they actually, the product owners wanted the work to be very collaborative. So they didn't, they wanted to have everyone involved, and they stated that this person is not a magical person. We can't just trust that they know all the answers. We have to take responsibility also as a team. Okay, so what we have covered now today is discussions on how can we integrate the methods that you have been working on in this course in the software industry when you come out, especially in agile development, because we know that these processes are the most dominant ones, at least in Iceland. And I showed you some strategies and told you stories about how people do that in both Icelandic industry and Swedish industry. Are there any questions? No? Okay, so tomorrow I would like you to bring your computers, and we will have a problem solving class where you show the results of project 4 to the uh, to other students. On Thursday there will be a guest lecturer. He's a master student and he is designing for people with special needs. So his master project is actually on the design of software systems for special needs, and he will come and give a lecture. And then next week we have a recap and the final and question and answer session for the exam. So, yep, question. Old exams. Yeah, I will check that out. I can check if I can find any that are similar to the subject we have covered. Yep. Okay, thank you very much for attending.